We have a special event as part of our meeting today. Frank Greif, who you all know well, has participated in the formation of a foundation, which has been a long-term aspiration here and has many potential benefits. And Frank will give us the background and some aspirations about where we go from here. So, Frank?
Thank you. And I realize we've run over, so it's going to be relatively quick. As this has been, developed, there have just been all kinds of questions, and there will be more. And I'm going to ask that I'll go through this report, giving you where we are, what's gone on, and then when you have questions, let's go back to the routine that we've really developed. Go back to your floors, talk about this, collect questions you have from the floors about the foundation, and then bring them to the Residents' Council. That way we can kind of bring all the questions together, because there are going to be similar questions from all the different floors. We don't have this kind of popcorn thing. So with that, let me see if I can step through this. Okay, the Hearthstone Foundation, as Don May said, has been formed. This is a big deal. A little bit of history. It started about, a long time ago, people talking and never getting anything done, right? Then we finally got approval from the state. Then we got approval from the federal government. And the Hearthstone Foundation is now a 501c3. So that means any donation becomes tax deductible. Okay? The board has been established, and we have 6 members. Albert Lures, I have this done backwards. Sorry, let me just kind of adjust myself. Albert Lures, who is now the president of the Hearthstone Foundation board. Albert is a retired attorney, but he is also a member of the Hearthstone trustees. So that's the link, all right? We have a couple other really great links. You see up there, Nancy Ward. Nancy is a former member of the Board of Trustees. Nancy also is the person who runs Greg Cycle, has for years, all right? Another former board member that many of you know is Judy Cheney, former member of the Board of Trustees. We also have Gary Hayamoto, who is a retired dentist, has been involved in lots of community efforts around the greater area, tied to Lutheran churches and that sort of thing. Lori Santamaria, who was one of the very first persons brought onto the board so that we could go through the formal process of establishing it. And she's been involved in fundraising at very different levels. And then I don't know who that last guy is on the end, but you may recognize him from around. So both Albert was going to be here, but he's out of town. But Nancy and Judy are here in the back of the room. If you would stand up and wave. Thank you for coming. So we're on our way, all right? What's the purpose? The purpose is to provide a method for raising and managing funds for the Hearthstone, to build and maintain a strong residents assistance fund. That's the real driver. It's what everybody has talked about, okay? The residents assistance fund. But it also will allow us to manage capital projects, fundraising for capital projects, and then finally offer an avenue for people who would like to say, whether it's in their wills or estate or whatever, I'd just like to give money to the Hearthstone, and the Hearthstone can decide what to use it for. So there's those kind of 3 different ways of doing that. So the Residents Assistance Fund, it is designed to honor the promise that we will always have a home here. Now look at the next number. This is a number that's kind of spread over the last several years. It has cost the Hearthstone between $200,000 and $400,000 a year to support those folks who have run out of money through no fault of their own, and to meet that promise. How it fluctuates is some years there may be 4 or 5 different people who need that help, and then 2 years later there are only 2. So, but it gives you that kind of range. That's really significant, and it's one of the reasons we chose this place. The problem that we have right now is that money comes out of the operating fund of the Hearthstone. And you heard Don May talking earlier about the impact of various things. Well, those are pretty big numbers, right? So what we want to do is, our goal in the foundation is build a big enough base to offset those numbers. This is really important because I get asked about it all the time. How do we know that if I give money to the Hearthstone Residence Fund, it won't go somewhere else? This is a restricted fund. So if someone gives money to the Hearthstone Foundation and it says this is for residence assistance, that money cannot be used for anything else. It cannot be siphoned off to cover shortages anywhere else, that sort of thing. It is used only for residence assistance. And Albert, as I said, is an attorney, and in our discussions, he said, if anybody were ever trying to move that out of there, there'd be attorneys all over you, the state, everybody else. So it is a protected location, that money is secure for residence assistance. And then, capital campaigns, occasional fundraising for greater needs. Well, we heard Tim talking earlier about the elevators. Well, the estimate to repair all 3 of them is around $1 million. And by repair, it's not like building new cabs. It's just replacing all the mechanics and all of the electronics, about $1 million. So that's going to be our first capital campaign. Raise money to fix the elevators as quickly as possible. And in answer to your question earlier, Jay, money from the residents is not going to be used to do that. This is a separate project, okay? If you would like to donate to this capital campaign to fix the elevators, that would be wonderful. But it's not going to be, an assessment on your dues or that sort of thing. Doesn't happen. And then, of course, I mentioned the greater good. That's where people can give money to the Hearthstone and say, you decide what it is you want to do, whether you want to do flowers, recarpet, whatever you want to do, all right? Then, the board relationships, and this is key. The Hearthstone Board of Trustees oversees the operation of the Hearthstone, right? That's what the trustees do. The foundation board is fully independent of that board. That means it is the only body that can decide where, when, and how money will be distributed from the foundation. And that responds to the concerns of, well, you may collect the money, but the trustees are going to just come in and move it wherever they want. Can't happen. They're totally separate organizations. What can happen is the trustees can come to the foundation and say, we have a need here. And the foundation then, the board decides, okay, that's something we'll fund. Or, okay, we might fund it, but not as much as you're asking, that sort of thing. It's the same thing with the Residence Assistance Fund. The Hearthstone trustees come to the foundation and say, we need X number of dollars for the coming year. Then it's up to the trustees not the trustees, for the foundation board to then transfer that money. So, how will we raise money? Good question. One of the first things as we kind of get our feet on the ground is to hire a part-time expert, development director, to just set us in the right direction. We obviously don't have the funds to hire somebody full-time, but there are a lot of real quality expert people out there. So we're in the search to find somebody now who can just kind of help us. Here's the way to go about that. How do you set it all up? How do you do the ask? All of that. We're going to approach the founding churches. Now, it's interesting. You know, a lot of the churches are struggling. They don't have a lot of money. But we plan on going to the congregation, asking the congregation for help. And who do you know? I mean, there might be somebody in one of those congregations who knows somebody who believes heartily in the Hearthstone and would make a contribution. It's also just making everybody aware the Hearthstone has a foundation. And that's a really important thing for us to do. We're going to search for grants for the capital campaign. I'd love to go after Otis Elevator. You know, the Otis Elevator building in Seattle for a long time was in a one-story building. Yeah. We're going to build legacy programs for residents, families, and people who simply love the Hearthstone. We're going to set up a program so that it's part of the end of life thing that we're talking about. So as you develop your will, your whatever, there has to be a way for the foundation to come to people and say, we would really appreciate it if you put the foundation in your will. And so what's the mechanism for us to do that? And what's the mechanism for people who want to do that to make it happen? So we're working on that. And then if you want to give right now, you can simply write a check to the Hearthstone Foundation, and write on it, Residents Assistance Fund. Do you think that'll happen soon? It happened yesterday. And not from a board member. Yeah. Okay. Right away. So, I would also say, let me tell you about the amount of money raised thus far. We have several $1,000s from initial contributions. But one of the big Kickstarters was the effort by Keith Arntz and Therese Atkinson in selling all of Clifford's artwork. Several $1,000s went directly to the foundation, or now going directly to the foundation, specifically for residents' assistance. So thank you to the two of you for making that happen. And then, Judy, would you come up for just a second? Because, as we're getting this rolling, Judy has been pinging all of the Board of Trustees and all of the foundation board members. And what's happened? Well, here, give me that. And what do you think's happened?
You asking me that question?
No, I'm asking them.
First of all, it's great to be back. It's been about 3 years, I guess, since I've been totally involved. But Hallie, I've known Hallie before she was born, and people kept pushing it, and now I'm in the right frame of mind to be back. I'm loving it. I'm meeting new people. I'm seeing old faces that I know. Not that type of old, but anyhow, I'm really excited. And the foundation is up and running. It's been a joy to be here, meeting some new residents. And anyhow, I can tell you right now, of the two boards, Board of Trustees, Foundation Board, we have 85% of those members that have already pledged to the foundation. So we're trying to set the tone, and it warms my heart, and I hope it warms your heart. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, come on, Nancy, come on up and just say hello, would you? It's important. You're a really important part of this. Long time involved in this community. Come up and say hello. People need to know who you are. Yeah.
Well, it is also a pleasure to be back here again. I was on the board here for about 10 years up until 2020, and it's just wonderful to, as I always said, I've seen the Hearthstone from the outside for many, many years, having worked at Greg Cycles for 38 years. But it was really a pleasure when I got to see the Hearthstone from the inside, where the heart of it is. So it's really fabulous to be back, and we're super excited to have the foundation here to continue supporting the residents who love and call this their home.
Great, thank you. Okay, now, whoops, go back. Question is, What have I done? There you go. How will we tell our story? Well, I've told you some of the things we're going to do, but we also will have a really robust website. This is really exciting, thanks to Jill. Google has made a contribution of $10,000 a month. And that money is in kind. What happens is when you search, as a matter of fact, I did it this morning. I typed in the Hearthstone at Green Lake, and one of the first things that came up was ageist living. So, well, because what happens is there's a system where the algorithms have all these keywords in them, they develop all that drive your name, whatever, to the very top of the list. Well, Google is going to do that for us to make sure that whenever anybody goes to the Hearthstone or Hearthstone Foundation, it's the first that comes up. And it's coming through the ad agency that Jill works with, well, everybody works with, to make this place really work. So round of applause, 10 grand. Then, of course, we're going to build a collection of publications and pamphlets and that sort of thing. We're going to hold some events here and elsewhere. And then let's all talk about it. When you're out in the community, spread the word. Hey, we finally have a foundation. You don't have to say finally. We have a foundation. We have a foundation, and it's on a tear. It's on the way. Now, there's one other big question that gets asked all the time. What's the difference between the Hearthstone Foundation and the ELCA? ELCA is Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. Let's give a round of applause to Jim and B.J. Killingsworth and Dave Town, because they started that. It was their effort, I don't know whether the board's going to appreciate this, their effort that really finally pushed the Board of Trustees and whatnot off the stump to get going on this. And they have more than $100,000 in that fund, and it's spinning off about $2,000 every quarter that goes directly to the Employee Assistance Fund. All right? Residence Fund. We need to develop some new whatever. All right. So, here we go. Let's look at the differences. All right? The big pot of money that is sitting in the ELCA spins out 4% every quarter. All right? Now, the problem is that it's part of a much larger fund, so that the money that is there, the principal, cannot be touched. So, you can't go to the ELCA and say, we'd like to boost the outtake to 6% or whatever. That's just static. And that money has to stay there. What's the difference with our foundation? Well, first of all, it's been designed to give us complete flexibility. This way, that we can increase the amount as needed, so that, as I was saying earlier, we go through a year or two where let's assume we have a big pot of money in it now. There's a year where the Residence Assistance Fund doesn't have a big need, so maybe you only draw down 2%. A couple of years later, oh wow, suddenly there's a big need. We could draw down 8%, or whatever amount is needed. And that flexibility is absolutely critical, because what it saves is it prevents the Hearthstone operating fund by being drained by something this whole system is designed to protect. And finally, wait a minute, go back, Frank. Well, I've never done this before. There you go. That's it. No, that's not it. This is it. Now I want to get sure. We'll get the last one. So the other part is that the funds are managed by the Hearthstone trustees. This is the really key part, I think. Not trustees, thank you. Foundation board. But the real key part here is that this is local. This is us. It's not just us, this community. It's the greater Green Lake community. It's the Lutheran churches. This is, sounds like a television show. This is us. And that's what's going to make this long-lasting and a place from the heart. So it's critical. So how does this come together? All right? Why is it going backwards? No, it's not. There we go. No. Don't worry, I'll get there. We'll be there by noon. This is the graphic I wanted to get to. So, no, it's not showing. There it is. So here's what happens. The ways are going to be set up. Talking to Jim and Dave, we've had several meetings about how does this work. So we now have this pot at the bottom that is the Residents Assistance Fund. The money from the ELCA will continue to flow, and it will come into our overall Resident Assistance Fund. And then the money that the Hearthstone Foundation raises will also go into the pot. So the two are coming together to build a sustainable future for our foundation. So there you have it. We're launched. We're underway. I can't give you the exact amount of money that's in it right now because we're just beginning. But as Judy said, there have been significant pledges. We're well into the thousands of dollars. Spread the word. Thank you for your listening, and thank you for your patience. All right? Remember, if you have questions, take them to your floor chairs. They will bring them to us. And thanks for staying an extra half hour.